What I am going to tell you happened when I was a child. I'm not saying that you have to believe me, nor that what I'm going to tell you will happen exactly as I describe it. I do think it is quite possible that much of it will be easy to refute. Anyway, when I was a child, my mother died young and I grew up with my father from the age of 5. My father's mental state deteriorated. He wanted to blame someone for my mother's death and his pain, and he blamed the government. Even though I don't fully understand the context, all of this led to him drifting further and further into conspiracy circles. And finally, it culminated in him joining a cult. This cult, like many of its kind, was convinced of the end of the world, and they were sure that they would be able to predict it exactly. The leader of the group was called Cray, and he claimed to have evidence that would convince anyone. My father was thrilled and convinced to save me from the end of the world. We moved to this cult together, directly to another country in Southeast Europe. There, the cult lived in an abandoned castle. This castle was old and remote, but at least it looked well maintained from the inside. And all the cult members lived there. My father told me that I would never be allowed to leave the property again, nor go to school. This was a bummer, because I wanted to see my friends. Fortunately, there were 6 other children in the cult itself, so I was not alone. One evening, I overheard a conversation between my father and Cray. Cray told my father about his prophecy. He said that according to official calculations, a planet would collide with Earth in May 2027, and not just any planet. It would be a second Earth. Cray talked about our planet having a dark twin. He said that leading astronomers already knew about it, but the government was keeping it secret to avoid mass hysteria. He said he had irrefutable proof of this and also knew how to survive the collision. For this purpose, the catacombs of the castle were filled with supplies that would last up to 60 years. I spent 9 years of this cult. One day I woke up to a bang. The main entrance was pushed open and police officers stormed the building. I was terrified. They searched the house and arrested all the members, even my father. Only the children were ignored at first. But when Cray was arrested and taken away, the police officer walked past me with him and stopped to speak into his radio in a language I didn't understand. Cray took the opportunity. He nodded to me to come closer and whispered that the evidence was hidden in the wine cellar behind a 10th bottle. He said I should hide the evidence, and then the policemen told him to move on. I was still a teenager, but just as brainwashed at the time. The police were searching another part of the castle and no one was paying attention to me. I went to the cellar as fast as I could, and sure enough, there was a cavity behind the 10th bottle. Photocopies were hidden there. They showed satellite images, pictures taken from space of a second Earth, and some calculations and analysis. I was too young and uneducated to understand it, but it looked legitimate. With the evidence in my hand, I snuck out of the building and walked far away until I came to a cave where we had played for years as children. There, I deposited the evidence behind a stone in a secret passage that only we children could fit through. And then, I went back to the castle, trying not to arouse the suspicions of the police. Years have passed since then, and my father is now free again and fortunately cured of the brainwashing, just like me. Cray is still in prison. However, I told my father about the evidence and we returned to the castle because he really wanted to see it. I led him to the cave, and since I still had a slight build, I was able to squeeze through the secret passage. But when I went to pick up the evidence, it was gone. The hiding place had been perfect. No one knew that I had stored the evidence there except for me. How could it have been stolen? Someone must have stolen it deliberately. Was it possible that someone had followed me back then? The evidence was gone and never turned up again. I don't know if the evidence was real. I also don't know exactly why the police arrested the cult members. Maybe the information we had was just too dangerous and the government didn't want to take any chances. I don't know. But Cray didn't seem crazy after all. And if you believe him, then the world could end in May 2027. But without the evidence, we'll never know for sure.